Imagine being one of the wisest men in ancient Rome, writing letters about how to live a good life, while also advising a guy like Emperor Nero, who would eventually go down in history as one of the most notorious rulers. Lucius Annius Seneca was not just a philosopher, but also a man who somehow balanced Stoic teachings with the chaos of imperial politics. His advice isn't just ancient history, it's shockingly relevant today, from dealing with toxic bosses to finding meaning in a world that often feels like it's spiraling out of control. But was he a wise sage or a delusional hypocrite? Let's dive into Seneca's most powerful lessons on living well to help us decide, and see if there's anything we can learn from him to thrive in the 21st century. Have you ever looked back at the past week, month, or even year and thought, where did all the time go? If there's anyone who truly understood that feeling, it was Seneca, a man who spent years exiled on a remote island, far from the power and prestige of Rome. He was forced to confront how he had spent his years and how easily life's most valuable resource, time, can slip away. Think about it. Seneca had once chased influence and success, thinking these pursuits would fulfill him. But alone on a remote island, he realized that life is long only if we know how to use it well. He saw that so much of what we chase blinds us to what we already have. The more we desire, the more time slips through our hands, leaving us poorer in ways we rarely notice until it's too late. We may not be in exile, but aren't we often caught in similar patterns? We fill our days with tasks, routines, and distractions, convincing ourselves that someday, when we have more money, more time, more success, then life will really begin. But, like Seneca warned, this mindset robs us of today. Life passes us by, not because it's short, but because we're not present enough to enjoy it. If we look around, we're not short on things to appreciate. A place to live, clothes, food, and access to an entire world through our screens. Yet we live like we're on autopilot, always reaching for more, thinking that somehow it will bring us the peace we're missing. In truth, as we accumulate more, our lives often grow more complex, not simpler. Like Seneca observed, the desire for more doesn't free us, it blinds us. His advice was simple: begin at once to live and count each separate day as a separate life. It's a call to recognize that life isn't measured by how much we achieve or accumulate, but by how fully we live each day. Imagine seeing each day as its own life, finding meaning in small moments, and valuing what we already have. The real tragedy isn't just that life is short, it's how easily we squander the time we have, convinced there will always be more. Seneca's wisdom challenges us to shift our perspective. Imagine each day as a fresh start, as if you've just been released from exile. Approach it with a determination to make every hour count. Embrace the idea that by living intentionally today, you might uncover a richness in life you never realized was possible. Seneca wasn't one to sit around in luxury. In fact, he recommended doing the opposite. Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, saying to yourself the while, "Is this the condition that I feared?" This wasn't some stunt to show off his stoic toughness. It was a reality check. The man wasn't talking in hypotheticals. He'd experienced the highs and lows firsthand, from advising the emperor of Rome to being banished to a barren island in the blink of an eye. If anyone understood how quickly the comforts of life could vanish, it was him. In today's world of instant gratification, where you can order takeout, stream movies, and have groceries delivered all without leaving your couch, discomfort has become a foreign concept. But as Seneca knew, comfort is a double-edged sword. When you rely too heavily on it, you become soft. And when life inevitably hurls a challenge your way, you find yourself paralyzed. The truth is, the more you embrace discomfort, the more freedom you gain. You realize that the things you once feared, the loss, the setbacks, the uncertainties, aren't nearly as terrifying as you imagined. Seneca was no stranger to luxury. He had the kind of wealth that could make today's millionaires look frugal. Yet, even as one of the richest men in Rome, he saw firsthand that piling up gold wasn't the path to a fulfilled life. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor, he warned. You see, Seneca wasn't speaking from a place of poverty. He spoke as someone who tasted luxury and found it lacking. He understood that people get stuck in an endless cycle of wanting more money, a higher status, a shinier toy. But here's the truth he grasped. Chasing material wealth is like drinking salt water. The more you consume, the thirstier you get. Seneca urged us to invest not in possessions, but in our own growth, our wisdom, and character. Because at the end of the day, when the glitter fades, it's your mind and morals that determine whether you've lived richly. So next time you're tempted to spend on that fancy new gadget or fixate on a bigger paycheck, take a step back. Ask yourself, is this really adding value to my life? Or am I just trying to fill a void? As Seneca would put it, true wealth isn't about having more but needing less. Seneca didn't become one of the most influential thinkers of his time by accident. No man was ever wise by chance, he said, and he lived by that maxim. Despite being born into wealth, Seneca spent years in exile and endured illness, yet he never let circumstances dictate his growth. He used those moments of hardship to sharpen his mind, not dwell in despair. For Seneca, growth wasn't about accumulating honors or hitting life's milestones. It was about the daily grind of self-improvement, embracing discomfort, reflecting on mistakes, and relentlessly pursuing wisdom. Think of your mind like a muscle. You don't get stronger by lounging around. You build strength by pushing your limits and challenging your beliefs. The real key, he argued, is accepting that you're a work in progress. There's no finish line where you finally made it. Instead of obsessing over having everything figured out, focus on the process. Seneca's life demonstrated that wisdom isn't something you arrive at suddenly. It's earned gradually, bit by bit, through consistent effort. Seneca didn't examine death from the comfort of a library. He lived in an age where mortality was ever present, whether from sudden illness, political betrayal, or the whims of a volatile emperor like Nero, who eventually ordered Seneca's own death. When Seneca wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time," he spoke from experience. For him, reflecting on mortality wasn't an obsession with death. It was a way to wake up to what truly matters. The Stoics believed that embracing life's impermanence strips away trivial worries and distractions. It's not about fearing the end, but using its certainty to bring your true priorities into focus. When Nero finally ordered Seneca to take his own life, he faced it with calmness, a dignity that came from years of preparing for life's inevitable end. To him, death wasn't an interruption. It was the natural closing chapter of a life lived fully. Seneca's message is clear. Don't wait to start living. If today was your last day, how would it change the choices you make, the words you say, or the way you spend your time? Would you finally let go of grudges and say the things left unsaid? What unfinished business or unresolved priorities could you address now to ensure that when the end comes, you're ready to meet it with the same calmness and dignity that Seneca did? Or are you still putting off truly living for some undefined future? Seneca lived in a world much like ours, full of distractions, endless obligations, and the relentless drive for more. As someone familiar with the pressures of public life and ambition, he understood how easily we become burdened by things that add little value. Until we have begun to go without them, we fail to realize how unnecessary many things are, he observed. For Seneca, letting go wasn't about rejecting life's pleasures. It was about making space for what truly matters. This isn't just about clearing out physical clutter. It's about freeing your mind from needless worries, unimportant tasks, and habits that drain your energy. We often carry more than we need, not just in possessions, but in expectations and obligations. The more we cling to, the harder it is to find clarity and focus. So, consider your own life. How much time do you spend on things that don't genuinely matter? What would change if you let go of one unnecessary commitment or released a habit that no longer serves you? You might find, as Seneca did, that letting go is not about deprivation, but liberation. Seneca practiced this even amid the demands of public life. He saw that true richness lies not in accumulating more, but in choosing what to leave behind. By setting aside the excess, we create space for what matters most: meaningful pursuits, deep connections, and a sense of inner peace. A simpler life, as Seneca understood, isn't an empty one. It's a life filled with what truly matters. As a top advisor of Emperor Nero, Seneca walked a fine line between power and danger. He understood that a life worth living isn't defined by playing it safe. He knew that risk was inevitable, especially if you wanted to live a life worth living. As is a tale, so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is what matters, he wrote, urging us to prioritize boldness over safety. Seneca's life was marked by bold decisions and the willingness to face uncertainty head-on. He knew that accepting risk was not about seeking danger, but about pursuing a life that felt meaningful and true, even if it meant stepping into the unknown. His courage was born not from a lack of fear, but from an understanding that a life spent avoiding challenges is a life half-lived. Think about the moments when you've hesitated, perhaps about a career change, a relationship, or a long-held dream. The fear of failure often keeps us stuck in the familiar, but Seneca's philosophy invites us to see these moments not as threats, but as opportunities for growth. The real question isn't whether you will encounter risks, but whether you'll allow them to hold you back or push you forward. As Seneca knew, a good life isn't defined by the absence of fear, but by the courage to face it head-on.